Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. If somebody could just type yes in the chat bot on the right side. Thanks, Jessica. That's great. Neve, thank you very much. Lovely. People can hear me, which is perfect. Although you might not think so in 20 minutes time. Thank you very much for joining me today. For those of you that have been coming to these over the past few weeks, we've been going through different topics around recruitment marketing and what people who aren't marketeers running businesses can typically do themselves. A lot of people have spoken to me about strategy, and so that's what I really want to focus on. And I think, actually there's a lot of apologies, the Amazon man's just came to bring a delivery. Apologies, my son's gone and answered the door, so apologies. There's a lot of strategy, a lot of things around strategy, and people are getting confused between strategy and marketing planning. So, and that's really important that you don't get mixed up between marketing strategy, which is kind of your higher level strategy, and so you market and your day-to-day marketing plans. And so whilst the marketing plan does feed into that, we're going to touch on that. This is really kind of the high level stuff that's really going to help you and support you. So at the moment, what's happening is a lot of people are running around like headless chickens when it comes to recruitment marketing. They don't really know what they're doing in terms of the place they're going. So what we say is very simply that you've got to kind of break it down. You've got to break it down into what your strategy is going to be in the short term and what your strategy is going to be in the long term and medium to long term when we come out of this. But the process you actually go through is the same, no matter if it's the short-term strategy or the longer term, but actually you need to tweak it. So there's a number of key areas that you would go through. So, and we're going to touch on each of these individually. So you need to go through your existing marketing plan, perform marketing research, develop a value proposition, set your marketing goals, define marketing strategies, define the marketing mix, look at the marketing plan, and this is where we'll go in a little bit more in depth to that, which some people confuse with marketing strategy, and review and assess. So the first thing is to look at your existing marketing plan. Now, you might not have, let me get rid of my annoying face from here so you can see that. You might not think you have an existing marketing plan at the moment, but you will be doing something. So what I suggest you do is, first of all, review that. Look at strengths, look at the weaknesses, look at the opportunities and the threats of each of those. By doing the SWOT analysis, you can start to formulate in your mind where you are with things. But also it's important to consider whereabouts in the process this marketing plan was. Were you in a turnaround stage? Were you in a realignment stage? Were you in startup stage, or were you trying to sustain business? Because obviously that's really important when we're looking at strategy. But so really have a think about that and really challenge yourself and be really honest with yourselves as well. It's very easy to say, yeah, we do this great and we don't do this so well. But actually, it could be that the things you do great comparative to what other people are doing might not be so good. So you really need to be honest with yourself. And then thirdly, you really need to think about your marketing function makeup. Now, that could be that it's outsourced, it could be in-house, it could be a mixture, it could be that you don't have one. But really think about what your existing marketing team and function bring to your business. Are they delivering what you want them to deliver? And do you know their skills? Do you know what they're capable of? And again, do a SWOT analysis of your marketing team. This isn't me saying, you should outsource to a business and get rid of all your in-house marketing people. Absolutely not, because there is a right place to have an in-house marketing team if you're the right size. But it's just saying you really need to be really critical of your marketing team in when you evaluate them. So the next stage is then to perform marketing research. So by that, what we mean is look at customer research, advertising research, product research, distribution, sales, and environment research. So briefly, each of these is, and we've touched on the customers before, but really understand who your customers are. And as we've spoken about in the previous 2 or 3 weeks, break those down. People often do persona marketing, which is kind of identifying who that person is, who you're aiming at. Again, we touched on that previously. But, you've got your candidates, you've got your clients, you've got your recruitment consultants for your internal work for us stuff. Then they're broken down again, on the client side, they're broken down between HR and line managers, and then they can be broken down even further by level or by vertical. So really start to think and understand who your customers are, what makes them tick, who are they, where do they go to get their news from, what motivates them, all those kind of things. Then do some research around where you can advertise. Often people go, well, job boards or social media. They don't think about the range of different options out there. Spend some time getting to know people, speak to different salespeople, look at different platforms there are out there for you to do marketing. There's so much tech out there. And what happens is when things are going fine, people either just organically bring on the tech without really considering why they're bringing it on, or they don't really investigate it, so they just go to the first person that comes along. So really have a look at all the web providers out there, look at all the content providers, all the video providers, all the different platforms. Again, if people need advice and pinpointing in the right direction for those, I'm more than happy to do that. Then look at kind of your product as your product. So your product being recruitment. Do some research around where the market is at the moment, both for recruitment as a whole, but also for your individual sector. Because actually what you find is a lot of people's marketing is misaligned with what the market is at the time. And then, distribution channels in terms of how you get out your marketing, look at the different distribution channels. And we're going to touch on those in a bit later on. Sales research, really have a look at kind of how sales interacts with marketing. That's kind of one of the most important things. I can't undersell how important it is to do research. It's one of the biggest things we do when we go into a client is do the research, because in effect what you're doing is you're building the foundations which your building is going to go on. And if you get all this research right, and now is a prime time to do that, because people are open to having conversations. Some people are furloughed, so they're happy to have conversations with you just around chatting away. Now's a real time to have that kind of conversation. And then what you really need to do is think about your value proposition. And a lot said in recruitment about unique selling points. Well, the reality is in recruitment that there's no such thing as a unique selling point, or very seldom is there a unique selling point, because pretty much what everyone does is the same. But the unique value proposition is very different. And this is really the key. This is your differentiator in the market. And it's that sweet spot between what your customer needs and cares about, what you really do well, but that your competitors don't really cover. So, have a think about that, what that is. It might be something huge. It might be something minor. It might be something that you don't necessarily think is aligned to what you do. So, we've got some clients who really focus on diversity, and that's their unique value proposition, that they're really focused on diversity and community, etc. And what that other people aren't doing, that the competitors aren't doing. Other people, it's really around they focus really on the training opportunities, and they've aligned themselves with a training provider to offer these kind of unique opportunities to their candidate base. That's a unique value proposition. So you really think about kind of what that is, and then you can really use that. So an example here is what Apple's is. So theirs is sort of a triangulation. So theirs is, we think differently. We've got great technology, which is just there above where my head is, and your privacy is safe with us. Kind of, that's Apple's triangulation. Spotify is a little bit different. Theirs is just a one-liner, which is just, it's music for everyone. That's what we're about. But actually, when you think about it, even if you look at Spotify, that's their unique, that's their value proposition, because that's what the customer needs and cares about music. They provide music platform, and they do that well. What competitors do, if you think about the competitors are out there, they have other platforms, but they don't quite do what Spotify does. So that's kind of where the unique value proposition sits for Spotify. So if you start thinking like that, and it's not going to come to you just sat listening to me, it comes to you whilst you stood in the shower or you're going for a long walk or something, really sit down and think and just mull it over and be, again, self-critical, because once you've got your unique value proposition, this is what you're then going to hang all your marketing from. So that's why it's so important. The next is to set marketing goals. So first of all, you need to kind of identify some. So, what we would say is, look at revenue goals. Your marketing goals should be attached to revenue, because otherwise, what's the bloody point in doing marketing if it's not going to make you money, unless you're particularly rich and you're just wanting to make things look pretty. Look at kind of the rates at which your recruiters can close things down. And so how many opportunities marketing need to provide you so that you can close those rates, so you can get those numbers to where you need them to be. And look at kind of the quantity of sales leads that will need to come in and how much marketing will be able to impact on those. So that's around, marketing working with your individual recruitment consultants. And then look at kind of the leads that are purely down to marketing driving them. And then sort of the numbers of websites that you think you're going to need to come to your website to translate those. And then setting goals for other key elements that you might come across. Goal setting can be quite difficult if you haven't got the data there. When we go into clients, we'll obviously look through their data. Sometimes there's a huge treasure trove of data, and we can be quite specific. Otherwise, we can set revenue goal, we can set goals, and they can change over time. Now, one of the things I want to touch upon is your goals for now in the short term are going to be different for your goals when you come out of this. So this is where your separation of your marketing strategies is really important. So, it's likely that your strategy now or your goals now are going to be more around keeping the lights on, making sure you're talent pooling, those kind of things, rather than driving revenue. Although obviously we'd like to do that. But when we come out of it, you're going to be wanting to grow your business. And so the goals are going to be slightly different. And so that's why it's really important to assess those roles. So those goals. I do make some suggestions, and that's not to have too many goals. You don't want sort of 35 goals that you've got to try and get. 3 or 4 is more than enough. And you need to make them realistic, because otherwise, you're not going to make them achieve. If they're not achievable, people just aren't going to buy into them. I know it sounds stupid, but you've got to have something to aim for. But they do have to be challenging. Make sure that they're really well documented. Everybody understands them, even if they're not part of your marketing function, whatever your function looks like. Make sure they're written down and reviewed regularly from top to bottom, and make sure that they're date aligned, so that you know what you're aiming for. Otherwise, it just becomes kicking the can down the road. And that's why it's really important, especially now, we're in lockdown for another 3 weeks. What's your marketing strategy for the next 3 weeks? What's your marketing strategy for the next 3 months? What's your marketing strategy for the next 3 years? So in terms of defining a strategy, let me just move my knocking out the way again. So a strategy is a process that allows a recruitment business to concentrate its resources on the optimal opportunities with the goal of increasing sales and achieving a sustainable competitive advantage. That's what the strategy is. But we break that down into two areas. We break that down into just two strategic themes and then your strategic goals. So a strategic theme, for an example, might be you want to update the digital experience that your candidates and clients have when they come to your business. Another strategic theme might be around quality and control of your brand experience. So there's a few different things you can sort of think about. They're the kind of the big overarching strategic themes. And again, I'm conscious that we've not got much time, but if people want any ideas, then just drop me a line and I'll certainly pass some of those over to you. And then your strategic goals. So that's kind of, the what you're aiming to achieve from your strategic themes. So that could be, be looking at creating a new vision, be looking at kind of how your brand is going, how you work, about technology stack that you're going to have, or just how marketing can feed in to that business model. And there's some of the goals. And again, we can share those on. Then you need to move on to defining the marketing mix. So that's the combination of elements that go to making the strategy. And you need to kind of think about 4 key areas. That's the earned, paid, shared, and owned. And often, recruitment businesses tend to focus on 1 or 2 of those. They tend to be the bottom half of those, so the owned and shared. But that's looking at kind of, and this comes back to some of your planning and etc. And having a budget. But paid advertising and banner ads and Google AdWords are going to drive some kind of engagement. So is that kind of part and parcel of the marketing mix that you need to deliver your strategic goals? It may be, it might not be, but don't discount it. And if it is, then obviously then that allows you to then think about how you structure your marketing budget, because you're going to need to allocate funds for that. And also it then allows you to think, well, have I got the right people in place to be able to deliver that? Because if the person who's running my marketing doesn't know how to run a Google AdWords campaign, and I actually think that's going to be the central part of my marketing strategy, you've got a problem. Obviously shared social media, word of mouth, referral, etc. That's kind of self-explanatory. And owned is stuff that you can create yourself. So that's the website, your blog, your own content creation. And again, if that's going to be working in tandem with, say, shared, for example, have you got the right resources in place? And then the earned is a bit more, I guess, the one people probably feel most uncomfortable about, and that's around media relations, so PR, making contact with influencers and getting all those kind of people involved. And again, what's your strategy towards that? If you're in a certain sector where there's some kind of key individuals who are really kind of doing a lot of stuff, is it possible that you can align yourself with those people? And if it is, and you should, and part of your marketing strategy should be about going and doing that. So that's kind of where you really need to be thinking. I guess the next one is the marketing plan. And this is probably the one that I'll spend the most time on, which is around how do you then go off and create that marketing plan? And there's so many different ways to do it. And I could spend about 5 hours talking about it, and nobody would be here by the end of it. But essentially, if you follow this pattern, you'll be doing all right. So we break it down into 3 areas. We call it hygiene, hub, and hero. So your hygiene is your always on stuff. That's kind of the day-to-day stuff. And I'll talk about that in a bit more detail in a minute. Your hub is kind of more regular stuff, designed for kind of specific targets. And then your hero stuff is the marquee events, the kind of brand awareness, kind of big pushes that you're going to have. And if you break your marketing down this way, it becomes a lot more easy to achieve. And we found that people who aren't necessarily marketeers find this the best way to approach it. And this is certainly how we approach things with all our clients. So the hygiene stuff, that's making sure that your comms, in terms of the quality of emails that are going out, the experience on the website, the daily social media postings, your interactions with kind of bloggers, the PPC stuff, the SEO stuff, all those kind of things are working, and they're constantly on and they're constantly happening, and that you know who it's targeted at. Now, obviously, we've talked about content, and we've had social media blog webinars previously. So that's kind of what some of the stuff we spoke about. So I'm not going to touch on that again now, because obviously that's a previous webinar if people are interested. Then the hub stuff, that's more around kind of your, as I said, your scheduled stuff, but slightly more thought needs to go into it. So that could be a blog, it could be your regular news letters that you send out, or news items that you put out. It could be a kind of your weekly webinar that you do. Things that are regular but not necessarily daily, things that you can get recruitment consultants involved in as well. Typically the hygiene stuff would be a marketing function that would do that, although there are elements of making sure that you're training your recruitment consultants to make sure that they're branding themselves. The hub stuff is more of is something that you can do in partnership with your recruitment consultants. And this is where you probably have the most focus in terms of working with them. As I say, things around newsletters and those kind of things. And then the hero items are the real kind of, said here, the go big moments to raise broad awareness. So an example would be a salary survey. You know, if you do that properly and you've got a proper marketing plan and you kind of build it up around that, you can find that you can really drive a lot of engagement. You can drive inbound sales, and you can drive people who are new to your brand if you set it up as a proper campaign. And again, if people are doing something like a salary survey, you know, please do pick up the phone and speak to me about how you're going to launch that, or anything big like that. Because what happens often is that people launch these things and they're a dumb script, because what actually happens is they just stick it out on social and don't do anything. There's a whole strategy that you should be putting around these things to make sure that you're getting value for money. So this is kind of the very base structure of your marketing plan. And as I say, if you take nothing else away from today other than this is going to help you in terms of structuring your marketing plan, because it kind of gives you your daily, your weekly, your monthly, your quarterly objectives. You can build the goals off the back of this. You can help allocate your resources, and it's just something that's very visual that you can put up on the wall. We can't show you around here because they've got clients on there, but we've got some big ones drawn out for clients, you know, that we can really show that work. And then you need to make sure that you're constantly reviewing and reassessing. So that's looking at kind of the placements made and new business that's won. So make sure you're able to collect this type of information. Then looking at the return on investment in terms of when you're spending money. Are you getting a decent return? Visits to your website, you know, they're important. And I know you need to be careful with that, but you know, on its own, it's not a good metric, but actually, you know, it's an easy to collect metric, which is why I always suggest it, but it has to be in conjunction with other things, because, you know, there's no good having, you know, 20,000 goat herders from Azerbaijan coming to your website if you're placing senior structural engineers in Manchester, for example. But visits to website is a good thing to track. And obviously, if you've got a marketing function, they can do a lot more around Google Analytics and delving deep into that. But I know most people who are on here today don't have a marketing function. So, you know, that top line is perfect. Time spent on website is a good metric as well, because the reality is that if somebody is coming to your website and spending 10 seconds, it probably means that A, they're the wrong person, or B, your website's really boring. But actually, if time spent on the website is increasing, you know that people are coming on there, engaging with what's on the website. Actions completed. So are people signing up for job alerts? Are people contacting you off the back of the website? If you send out an e-shot, are people responding to those e-shots? What are people doing in terms of social media, in terms of engaging with your social media? All those types of kind of metrics where an action is taken are really helpful. The vanity metrics, now, we would always caution against the vanity metrics, but I think they are still important to track. And by vanity metrics, I mean how many new followers you've had on Facebook, or how many followers you've got on LinkedIn, or how many Twitter followers you've got now. Those kind of metrics. Now, it's very easy because I can pay $5 and go to a factory over in India and get you 10,000 followers on LinkedIn by this afternoon. So you can manipulate it if you wanted to. It's really bad. Don't do that, by the way, for a whole host of reasons I won't go into. But if you're not doing that kind of thing, then kind of look at kind of getting some vanity metrics in place. And then brand recognition. And this is kind of, this is where you'd have to go out, and there are programs that do this, but actually on this basic, going out actually and looking at how far your brand is recognized. So that's a case of, asking people, when you speak, how do you recognize this brand? Do you recognize my brand more? People you don't know. So we do market research. Certainly when we're doing rebrands, we do a lot of market research. It's really interesting to ring up, and don't say where you're from. So you can use your own database, but ring up, don't say where you're from, and say you're ringing from a market research company, or you're ringing from a marketing consultancy, and you just want to know if they've heard of these brands. And you'll be really interested. Even people who are registered to your database may not have heard of your brand. So, that's a really good exercise that we encourage all our clients to do, and we often do that for our clients. And then anecdotal. So when I worked in-house, I used to absolutely hate anecdotal evidence because it used to drive me round the bend, because you'd have all this empirical evidence there, and then kind of Joe Bloggs sat over there, who's the top biller, says, well, I think it's better when we all wear, when we all got pictures of us wearing sun hats and sunglasses. And I get a better response that way. And I used to absolutely hate that. But actually, some of the anecdotal evidence can be useful. And I think where it is useful is if recruitment consultants feel engaged with what's going on in terms of marketing, then that anecdotal evidence is really important and can help. It doesn't mean you're going to invest a lot of effort and time in it without kind of the other evidence to back it up. But if there is that anecdotal evidence, then that is really helpful. So that's kind of strategy in a nutshell. I know I said I'll try and keep it to 30 minutes, and we're up there, and then we'll have time for some questions if anybody has any. What strategy is like? It's a bit like driving a brand new car off the forecourt. It's there and ready, but then you still need to maintain it. You still need to service it. It still needs its MOT. You still need to check that it's working properly. Occasionally things might go wrong with it, and you need to fix them and tweak them. You may have been driving off in one direction and you now started going off in another direction. The purpose of the car might have been because you've got a sports car, but now you suddenly got a family, and the purpose of the car's changed. And that's pretty much what a marketing strategy is like. It feeds into everything. It's that kind of high level thinking that then needs to feed, that you need to have in conjunction with your sales strategy. And it is really important. And I say, especially in times like now, your marketing strategy is likely to be very short term, because visibility is not great. So your marketing strategy, as I say, is going to be very different for the next few weeks. But I think it's still important to still set a marketing strategy. So I'll say at the moment, people are running around headless chickens doing stuff. So chucking content out for the sake of it, or excuse me, or not really thinking, or going, we're not going to spend any money, or going, we're going to spend loads of money and spending it in the wrong place. So it's really just, as I say, really thinking about things, about the strategy and what you really hope to achieve. What is it you're wanting to say to your market, and what is going to be beneficial for you to be doing right now? And also then, what is going to be beneficial for you that you're doing right now in terms of strategy that's going to help you when we start coming out of it? And then also the third part is when we are out of it and we're kind of back to normal, some of your competitors may have fallen away, or you might be leaner, it could be positive or negative for you. You'll know kind of what's your marketing strategy look like then. And don't be afraid to ask those really challenging questions. You might not know the answers, and that's also fine. And if that's the case, then if you just want to pick up the phone and have a 20-minute chat with me, that's perfectly fine. If you go onto our website, themarketingjunction.co.uk, and contact, there's an online calendar, and you can book some time in with me there. That's really not a problem, because I really want to make sure that people have kind of the right strategies in place. As I say, I, like with all of these things, we're kind of pushing at 30 minutes now. A couple of questions that have come in. I'll ignore the one from Recruiter Web, but Neve's asked, is this recording and other recordings of previous webinars? Yes, there are. It's the last blog post on our website, so themarketingjunction.co.uk has a list of all the previous recordings for all the different kind of specific webinars that we've run. Does anybody have a particular question that they want to ask? I know I've received a couple of private messages already whilst I've been doing this, and I will see to those once I've come off this, because I think one of them isn't appropriate to share with the group. So if nobody has any questions, then I will leave it at that. As I say, you know where we are if you need us, and that's not, I mean, yes, if you'd love to spend money, then great, but that's not something that we're doing. We're doing it to support you guys through this period. So as I say, don't jump into things, think about things, and sit back, really kind of think about your marketing strategy, have it constantly percolate in the back of your mind, and then it'll come and flow. Jessica's asked, excellent. Do you have any suggestions for how to get consultants to buy in and use marketing as part of their business development when they consider it to be the marketing team's job? Cattle prong is often useful. Yeah, I mean, look, I think the reality is it's about picking your battles. So depending on the size of your business, don't work with every single recruitment consultant. Pick the recruitment consultants that it's going to make the most benefit to, and also who are going to be the most receptive. Now, I'd caveat that with, be careful of who you choose, because I've seen it before where you've chosen somebody who's really interested, say, in social media, and that person is doing fantastic and you're really pleased, but then they're fired for not billing. And it's not because they've spent time on social media, but what you then get is, well, they got fired because they spent so much time on that crap social media stuff. So make sure you choose somebody who has a good reputation internally, who you can work with, and then go for some quick wins. And make sure that you, as your marketing team, are sat within the sales function if you can, so that sales feel part of marketing feel part of sales. All that kind of stuff really helps. And then it's just coaching them. So we typically start with coaching, offering some coaching sessions, kind of typically in lunch times. That's around kind of how can you optimize your LinkedIn profile? What can you be doing on LinkedIn? It's some kind of top tips that you can be doing on LinkedIn that kind of going to help you, that aren't going to invade too much of your time, and start slowly like that. Write a blog on behalf of a recruitment consultant that they can then post out. So it's kind of very slow. You're not going to go in and start getting people to change their mind straight away. Another thing that we do is kind of, you try and gamify things so they like competitions. So, if you're saying, actually the person, if you're set, you need to be putting out, X number of posts a day, or you need to be posting out one job a day, etc. Actually we have kind of competition for the best post or something like that, and that can be really kind of engaging for people. And those kind of things that you really try and support them with. Again, setting things up for them. So, a lot of the time they don't feel that they can be creative. So again, if you've got a Canva account, you can set it, if you're setting a Canva account up with loads of templates that you say to people, look, just go in, plonk this text here, and then this is what you do. It's a 2-second job, but the template's already here for you. That can help. So it's sort of baby steps. As soon as you start seeing those returns come in, it does snowball. But you're right, it's a challenge. And if you need any help with it at all, then please do give me a shout. Is there anything else? No? Excellent. Okay, in which case, thank you so much for taking part in attending today's webinar. It'll be online a bit later on today. Yeah, I'll come back to everyone with what the topic for the next one is. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you.